They're always having conversations when they're drunk.
Can you look at the camera?
Welcome back to the Dr. Z show.
There was some kind of like
Don't-
audio lag when Anthony was breathing in like his deep breath before.
You were suddenly a Decepticon.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, it sounded like a rattlesnake.
Like, yeah.
That aside,
Today's episode is not going to be fun.
yeah. So
But
if
it
you're here
is.
if you're here for Jacob and I to talk about what memes should be in government positions of power, you can skip to next week. But this week it's gonna be a rough time.
It is.
But it needs to be talked about. We need to discuss this.
It's an
This
important
is why I've
conversation.
called you all here today.
It's an important conversation that the community of nerds needs to have and continue to have in this time we live in. Because politics doesn't just affect one aspect of your life. It affects every aspect of your life.
And the fact that some of these things are political issues is just that is the most depressing.
Well, okay. So what we're talking about today is various injustices, biases, and I mean like blank isms within nerd culture itself. And not just like easy examples of like racism and sexism and transphobia and homophobia, ableism, like all of it. This is a really large conversation that we're breaking up into a bite-sized piece for today and can be revisited at a later date.
It's gonna be a big bite though.
It's gonna be a big
It's big
bite.
boy bite time.
But when you consider the larger scale of what this means, it's still only a small bite.
Also,
which is wild.
Also, as this is sort of unofficially part 3 of the gatekeeping
Bullying
episodes that we had, but
which I was not a part of the first time.
Well, yeah.
I'm saying that for.
Okay.
You know,
yes. No. Yeah. For historian.
No, you had
historical accuracy.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I do want to mention, as I believe that I mentioned in either one or both of those episodes, and have mentioned before on the show, we are like acknowledging that we are white. Like that is fully like understanding of our privilege in this situation. Like,
yes, we are,
this is not for
white.
brownie points. This is not for like, oh, like we want to be relevant, like any of that. We sort of came to this conclusion together that we need to talk about this, and we need to talk about this sooner rather than later. So that is the why as to why we are here today.
And it was also prompted by I forget. I feel bad for forgetting.
The prompt. This was prompted when an article came out from a now former writer for Wizards of the Coast, freelance writer for Wizards of the Coast and D&D.
If you're unaware, Wizards of the Coast owns D&D,
Magic the
Gathering, among other various nerd properties.
Yes.
They own a lot. They
own a lot. I mean, and they're owned
player.
by Mattel, who owns even more. Or Hasbro. No, they're Hasbro.
It was by Jeremy. The article is by Jeremy Bloom.
Yeah, Hasbro. You said Mattel, and I was like, what?
It's Hasbro. That was my bad.
It was
that was a while ago.
HuffPost Entertainment article.
Yes.
Yes, and so also while Jacob's mentioning that it was Huffington Post, every article that we talk about, that we reference, that we will quote from, I will 100% include in the description. And in case it wasn't obvious that I read the descriptions for the videos anyway. But I will include all of those links in the description so that you can come to your own informed decision about what we're talking about today. Like,
Because, and we're going to talk about this too, this is a conversation intended to bring forth the issues and I don't want to
more conversation.
Yeah, well, and I don't want to say like eradicate the biases and the issues there because that feels really intense, but that's kind of what needs to happen because I will take it from the lens that I am under. As a woman and a nerd, it's frustrating to be a part of the community most days.
And just some fact clarifications. The very first article I sent was from a website called belloflostsouls.net that covered this on how Orion Black quit working for the D&D section of Wizards of the Coast. And then the other article was about how Daniel Kwan has been working to promote correct
Asian representation.
Anti-stereotype depictions of Asians or Asian people in media, particularly D&D from the Huffington Post article.
Yes. So we're just going to start with D&D and race specifically. I feel like that's it's a pretty straightforward argument and discussion to have. Because one, as we established last week, and as is going to continue to be established every day, Black Lives Matter, and all lives matter cannot matter until Black Lives Matter.
Not in question.
Not a question. That is a human rights discussion, not a political position.
And a version of history, like, unfortunately, like, people are, that's kind of what it's about too, is that, it's like, oh, well, anyways. I watched 13th on Netflix the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Very eye-opening to a lot of, more of the nuances of the civil rights movement that I never knew about.
So
Brenna has the list,
yes.
as she is the
organizer, the
organizer,
one who keeps us on track.
Cracks the whip.
She speaks for the list.
Don't say cracks the whip.
That's a different conversation.
Cracks
later.
Cracks the globe, the globe band.
Airway traffic controller. We'll go with that.
Okay.
So a discussion
fighter jets made of biceps. Sorry.
A discussion to be had in terms of D&D. That is an interesting point that's come up, and a larger, discussion to be had is the term race within games like Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop games. Because, do you mind?
Yeah. So let's. Well, go ahead, but I'm gonna put this in there now so that we remember. We're gonna Mickey Mouse everything as much as possible so that, like, even without context of like, oh, I play Dungeons and Dragons every day, or like Dungeons and Dragons, what's that? Either side of the table can understand what we're talking about.
Right. So in terms of tabletop games, your race, as it is often referred to, is cultural background you come from, and your features and your nature are often determined by it. Like human versus elf versus orc is the easiest way to describe it.
You have bonuses as a member of that species in general.
And special benefits from one or the other.
Yeah, to your...
So, like, dwarves
stats.
are really good at mining things,
And
and
not-
elves are really fast and sneaky, and like so on and so forth. Like if
Orcs,
you've
you know,
ever
deal more damage. They're stronger. They have a better constitution. Things like that.
yeah, if you have like general nerd knowledge, the best way to describe it is like think about picking your like race in Skyrim. Like
Yeah.
why are you whatever, like a Nord or an Orc or whatever. Like that's the most like generalized kind of example that I can think of, because a lot of people, like even non-nerds including, are familiar with like what Skyrim is and
Yeah.
that people play it and so on.
And the reason why this has become a topic of conversation of late is because the term race in a tabletop game, and any kind of, when you're differentiating different groups of people, is a little bit of an issue, specifically in things like D&D, because written in the rules, there are races that tend to lean evil. That is just a thing in the world, right? Like dark elves and Duragar and things like that are infected with Shadowfell energy or cursed by gods at an early age. It depends on the world that you're living in, right? And they
It
tend
gets
to
really like lore heavy. Like the
Yeah.
deeper you go into the why, the like lore heavier it
and
gets.
every world and every unit has its own kind of like background for it, and it's really hard to Mickey Mouse, but it's really easy to misunderstand from an outside perspective, right? When you think dark elf, I think a lot of people immediately go to a black elf. And to be clear,
Their skin is blue.
their skin, yes, one, their skin is blue.
Point.
Two,
No.
the point is you can be black and an elf and not be a dark elf. You can be white and an elf and not be a white elf. And I feel like these are things that fantasy has neglected in creating a rich and diverse world that has led to assumptions of racism and it's whitewashed universes, basically. And I think, again, as a community and as writers in the fantasy world and as all of this, I think it is becoming more of a concerned effort to expand on all of this, right? I mean, D&D has never been more popular. It's never been more diverse. It's never been as widely played as it is in this day and age. And that's so...
And it's not slowing down either.
And it's not going to slow down anytime soon because it's such a creative outlet. You can be whoever you want. You can do whatever you want. And that's incredibly freeing for self-expression. I know too many people like work through their own interpersonal problems using things like D&D, because you get to explore, like, and I do this. I always, whenever I build a character, I take a part of myself that I want to explore more, and I put it into my character. Whether that's something as simple as curiosity, or something as like complex as like an inability to be selfish. Like things like that are like explored in a character. That's just character development. But that also doesn't mean that your characters can't have diversity. And when people hear the phrase dark elf, they assume negative diversity because of the evil connotation. So what a lot of people are proposing, and something that I definitely am a huge fan of, is either referring to the races as, instead of races, as ethnicities or cultural backgrounds. Because we can also all agree, just because you are of one race does not mean you are of the same cultural background, right? Like a black person in America and a black person in Africa are going to live two very different lives. A white person in America and a white person in Poland are going to live two different lives. So having that distinction makes it easier to also, one, it takes away the negative evil connotation that can really create a negative feedback loop, right? And two, it clarifies that everything is more inclusive. There's shades of every color within the race.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at the end of the day, they're all humanoids. If anything, the race is humanoid. And that was me getting on a soapbox about race in D&D.
I mean, this is a soapbox
all
episode.
humanoids
Like, this is where we're going.
What?
Can all humanoids in D&D crossbreed? Like, is it?
No.
Not in early editions. In later editions, it depends on the world you live in. I mean, like, again, it all
It
depends
depends on the
world you
lore
live
of
in.
the world you're working within.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
In most cases, no. In most cases, it's only humans and elves.
Yeah. 'Cause I was thinking, like, is it like type with species? I don't know. Also, because there's different breeds of dog instead of like different races of dog.
Yeah.
We talk about like different like races in humanity.
Well, and that's why I think ethnicity works, right? Like,
Yeah.
Ethnicity implies a group of people with a common thread who all have one thing. So ethnicity is, I think, where it can lead, or cultural background.
Yeah, people have been raised in.
I think that's the easiest
Were
way
you
to
raised by orcs?
Oh, the thing with the Daniel Kwan, well, like the Huffington Post article,
Yes.
comments by Daniel Kwan were on Twitter were that Wizards of the Coast was still selling, these PDFs from the early history of Dungeons and Dragons
the yawning
I think they
portal,
were
as they call it.
all first edition.
Yeah,
that had stereotypes of Asian
like
cultures.
yeah,
And
Specifically, hold on, I'm just gonna pull this up specifically. Specifically, Oriental Adventures from first edition, and that was the one that Daniel Kwan was bringing up. But the other one that they mention in the HuffPost article was it's Meztaika from Mesoamerica and Al-Qadim Arabian Adventures. It's the Middle East.
yes.
So,
Are the other ones that he brings up but does not delve into, since he is not of Mesoamerican or Middle Eastern descent.
yeah. So the issue I think that was brought up is that like they were profiting off of stereotypes, and that it's like recognizing that these things existed is like fine for historical purposes, but selling them isn't. And then so that's kind of where I'm at. Like, it's like you don't need to be venerating something by making money off of it when you're not even like there's not even a cost of production at that point if it's to pay for a PDF.
So what Jacob's Wizards like started to face more and more backlash about these books. I mean, they're PDFs now. About these books being sold on Dungeon Masters Guild and Drive Through RPG, which are sites that are credited by they're reputable sources credited by Wizards that are licensed to sell Wizards merchandise. And they placed a disclaimer saying that like we recognize that these books have, or that this book has, because they only did it for Oriental Adventures. They did not do it for the other two books that are mentioned. They placed a disclaimer saying, this does not reflect our views now. It doesn't like reflect the way we think now, the way we are now. But if we didn't still publish this content, it would be as if these prejudices never existed, or these issues never existed. Which the disclaimer is like to me, it's like it's like baby's first steps, like against
the legal team making a statement.
Right.
That well,
But it's very easy and it's very like safe.
yes, it's covering their ass.
And like to me, like trying to like I will never be able to obviously, but like trying to put myself in the shoes of someone that like this would be offensive to, like that's not enough. Like
Absolutely
you're not even trying right now. And so it goes along with the Belle of Lost Souls article about Orion Black resigning from Wizards of the Coast and like issuing this like kind of terrifying statement.
It's a terrifying look into what it is like to be a POC hire as a freelance writer at Wizards of the Coast. Because Orion mentions in the article that this was his dream job. This is everything he wanted to be, and at the end of the day, he feels like he was simply a diversity writer or a diversity hire. Orion wasn't given projects. He wasn't given things to work on. He had to fight and claw for things to be handed to him or given over to him. And that's unfair. In
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And the Belle of Lost Souls article links out to how this is not an isolated incident.
I haven't read those links, but I should.
Granted, this article was published on July 8th, so it is very recent. At time of recording, today is July 13th. And it does say that at the bottom of the article, it does say we'll be monitoring the story closely and keeping you updated as it unfolds. So there's
Wizards has yet to release a statement about this either.
Right. So yes, that's correct. So there is some belief that Wizards will either release a statement. Oh, excuse me. The Wizards will either release a statement, sort of mentioning Orion or what had happened. They'll sweep it under the rug or something.
I have a feeling they'll sweep it under the rug, like they've had a history of doing.
Future. That is their history, and it like as someone who loves Magic and loves Dungeons and Dragons and like loves Wizards for what they create, I have to recognize that like this is bad.
Sorcerers of the Landlock. It's good.
Become
Jacob is suggesting we create a rival company called Sorcerers of the Landlock, which is
not the worst idea. It's a decent name.
You got to remove the because it's still too close. I would say in a
Sorcerers in a Landlock. Yeah.
Something. Point.
Why are they landlocked? Why can't they just find water? Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's the opposite of Waterworld. Point being like for a long time when I was still a young lad and pretended at least to not care about politics, like I played Magic and I was ignorant of these issues, and then I started to realize that like as you meet more people, especially, and like as you play Magic more and more and meet more people playing Magic or playing D&D or joining groups for D&D and meeting people and sharing ideas, you start to realize like this is a problem. And like here are the issues. And like why is this a problem and how can we fix it?
I'm glad you could understand that without someone beating it into your face. Because I've had to beat it into people's faces before.
Well, people, what's the line from Men in Black that I always quote? People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals. Like a person, the person is smart.
Yeah, a person is smart, people are dumb.
And that's kind of the heart of the issue. And I know I've talked about it on the show before, like and I think the last Magic episode we did, like there's someone at the LGS that I was a part of before I moved that we didn't like playing with. We didn't like him. We didn't like playing with him. We didn't enjoy playing with him. And it wasn't because he was black. Like, that was not ever a factor in why we didn't want to play with him, or everyone sighed when he came into the shop. We didn't like playing with him because he was a dick. Like,
he would intentionally, like, he did things in his playing that made him unfun to be around.
correct.
And outside of play as well, just simply
Saying things and doing things
I
that...
felt incredibly uncomfortable around him.
Right. Unrelated to his race, unrelated to the fact that you're a woman, he's a man, we're both men, like, unrelated to all of that. The way he played the game was distasteful, I guess, is the best way to put it.
The reason we bring that up, right, is because with all things, with all characters and people, when you don't like something, break down why you don't like it.
Yep.
Okay, this guy punched my dog. Great. Do I hate him because he is a man, or do I hate him because he punched my dog? I hate him because he punched my dog.
Right.
And him being a man is also a truth.
Yeah, dismantling.
Yes,
Right,
breaking down those biases and understanding where the seeds of hatred come from makes it easier for you to one, come to terms with learning and growing to, I don't know, be a more empathetic person and a more socially aware person.
And replace man with anything.
Well, that's
woman, like, person of color, like, non-binary, like, replace man with anything. And
my next example is Harley Quinn, right? Like, a lot of people don't like Harley Quinn. And it's, well, do you hate Harley Quinn because she's a woman or because she's annoying? If the answer is because she's annoying, well, why do you think she's annoying? Is it because she is a woman, or is it because, of the way she behaves? Well, okay, well, why do you hate the way she behaves? And it can go deeper and deeper. Chart. Yeah, it's a flow chart. And if the answer at any time is because of a simple fact about them that they cannot change, an identifier of who they are, then you should return to step one and reassess. And that's something that constantly goes through my head when I'm talking to people, especially in the nerd community, is like, are they telling me I'm wrong because I'm actually wrong, or are they telling me I'm wrong because I'm a woman?
And we've discussed this on the show
and we
before,
have.
Actually. You and I have gotten into it about things on the show that we disagree about. And, like,
yes.
the point is clear.
Yeah.
Like,
no, you don't disagree with me simply because I am a woman. You disagree with me because we have differing points on Star Wars. Let's be real. The biggest point of contention is Star Wars. So, walking
says the girl with the Star Wars poster.
My friend bought it for me.
Just saying.
Nice art.
I'm just saying.
Thank you, Malik. Malik, if you watch this episode, thank you.
I'm just saying. Just pointing that out.
It's real cool art.
Just pointing that out.
But that actually weirdly gets to the heart of the issue here, is that, like, people can, like, the point is that we're, like, in the bullying episode, we talked about how nerd communities, the point is to be a community. Like, there's stuff that you enjoy and kind of have, I don't know, expectations about to a degree of, or at least, like, you all expect to enjoy the thing. And, as far as, like, there are people I have found out who are, like, strongly advocating for gatekeeping to, like, be stronger and, like, push people out of, like, the communities that they, I don't know, like, want to foster. The issue is you need to, as far as, like, the dismantling bias goes, it's like, do I not like change, period? Like, am I afraid of change, or like, am I afraid of change that will include representation of people who like I also don't like because of like who they are? It's like, oh, like I want my comic books to never ever represent, like, I never want a black person to show up in my comic books. Like, that's how they've been for the past 30 years. Like,
That's
they
horrifying.
need to, look, they need to look at that. And I think it's a different thing if, I don't know, like maybe I don't know. The only thing that I
Jacob's
think
struggling
that,
with this is because he's a good person trying to come up with an example of a bad person.
I could only think something like that being okay if there was some kind of like historical fiction thing. I once again, I would not support people being like angry at the black cast of Hamilton portraying like historically white people. Like, like you do your thing, like, but even still, there's no reason to be like,
the issue I also have sometimes with like historical fiction is that it eliminates it eliminates people from existing, right? Like, gay people have always existed. Trans people have always existed. Women have always existed. POCs have always existed. I mean,
you can't remove them. Like, it is only now that the stories are being written about and by them.
yes.
It's not that they didn't exist before, but now it's okay for them to exist, and it's becoming more okay, which is the worst way to put it, because it should, like, that's where it stops being a nerd issue and starts becoming a human rights issue. Like, these people are human beings, like, with their own lives and their own, like, things going on, their own feelings, their own everything. Like, just treat them, like, treat others as you want to be treated. Like, literally.
Well, I just want to, like, to highlight the issue too of like the idea of BIPOCs like telling their own stories is Parasite. Oscar-winning movie.
Oh, the movie. I was like,
Four nominations. None of them for acting. It won Best Picture. But not a single one of the actors in apparently the best movie of the year received an acting nomination.
Right.
Every single actor in that was Asian, specifically East Asian. There has been one actress nominated for best performance in a movie, and one Asian actress, and that was in 19. Oh, it was 19. It's so long ago. It's not even funny, and she is the only one.
I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I don't know this.
Hold on.
We're holding on.
That's the Golden Globes. I need Oscars.
Golden Globes are different.
I know, but Awkwafina becomes the first Asian American to win Best Actress at the Golden Globes. Yikes. That's the Golden Globes. I want the Oscars. Well, I can't find it.
Was it the 90s or was it before?
It's before. It's closer to the 60s, I believe, or the 50s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
If I'm 80% sure about that. I'm going to look this up once we're done recording, and I'm going to find an article or a reference for it.
And she was the only one nominated, or she's the only one that's won?
Nominated.
Oh my god.
Yeah, nomination.
Did she win?
No.
Also, something I was just thinking about too is we talked a lot like before coming to record this about like so many things. But the other thing is thinking now about, also on dismantling biases, like if you're relying mostly on straw man arguments, like
You're wrong.
Or if you're wrong,
it's like 99% that you're wrong. Like, like there's the really like crazy off chance that like you've hit the nail on the head somehow.
Show your work.
But yeah, you need to, and I've seen this too, with like just the political environment, people posting things on social media.
fallacies in general
Yeah, you need to go to
are
the
weak.
people that are being, vilified, and you need to kind of like you need to figure it out, like,
And tying that in, the other aspect of this that I wanted to cover in the race department for our problems episode with the community is really difficult for me to talk about because I love this author. And these books were a huge part of my childhood.
Yes.
So
Okay, here
we're
we're approaching the territory. Like,
yes, we're
I'm
okay.
I know what you're going to talk about. I'm like stealing myself though, because after that comes
a real shitstorm. So
nailing me to the cross.
Rick Riordan recently posted, and we will link to it, posted an article discussing why one of his characters, Piper McLean, wears feathers in her hair. She is a member of the Cherokee Nation from Oklahoma. In his House of Olympus series, so the Roman Percy Jackson series, the Jason, I don't remember his last name, but the Jason series, which started to not, I didn't read those as much, but I did read the first 3 books of those, and Piper is an incredibly written female character who happens to be Native American. And he described, in his description of why he's given her feathers in her hair in every description, he really misses the mark. Yes, a little bit in his research, but where he really misses the mark is his acknowledgement of possible failures in his research. In his description, he discusses how he read several resources, primarily one written by a white man in the 19th century who was studying the Cherokee Nation and as an outsider living in the nation itself, in the Eastern Cherokee Nation. And he does admit in the article that, I understand that this is a white man writing about Cherokee things, but this man wrote down a lot of history about the nation, which is fine. And he goes on to discuss another reference he uses, but the issue rises when he begins to talk about how he is being bullied for his representation. Now, he describes why he put feathers in her hair, and at no point in his description does he discuss actual members of the Cherokee Nation braiding feathers into their hair. He talks about a headdress and how important the feathers are in their rituals and how deeply sacred they are. So much so that several tribes in the Cherokee Nation have entire houses dedicated to feathers and protecting them for the rituals, such as the feather dance. So he misrepresents a cultural staple and symbolic touchstone of the Cherokee Nation by having Piper braid feathers into her hair. And that misappropriation of something so deeply ingrained in their culture, he is people calling him out for that and saying like that's incorrect, he is calling bullying.
which is becoming more and more popular. People are saying like, oh, like I'm not allowed to have free speech, like I'm not allowed to do this because I'm gonna be bullied. No, like just do your fucking research, man. Like,
But not even do your research. Like
you
he
took
did
a
his
secondary
research.
source, you acknowledged that it was a secondary source, and you did not use the primary sources. Like primary sources still exist. Like, however, the United States government has like marginalized like the indigenous people of America, like primary sources for the Cherokee Nation still exist today. You could easily, as a writer, contact them and say, hey, I'm writing about this character in this book. I want to include some details about her heritage in this book.
What would a young teen girl in the Cherokee Nation in today's world look like? Could I have a discussion with some of your young Cherokee Nation members?
It's so easy to do that. Like,
and he has the power because he's Rick Riordan. He's written several well-beloved series in which everyday kids are given magical powers. What kid doesn't want that? And we'll get to our big fish to fry in that department. But Rick Riordan is a small fish, is a medium-sized fish to fry in this regard. Because he wrote the series for his kids so that his kids could have a bedtime story that was engaging and meant for them and so that they felt represented in a fun world. And then he took that and he wanted to make sure every kid felt represented. And his intentions are good. His response is bad.
Also in his response, he mentions, like, he's sort of like, this is your fault, like, to the reader, like, this is your fault if you're upset.
If you're upset. He does say, once the words leave my hands, they become up to your interpretation, which is always such a weak argument for, if I fucked up, it's not my fault. And that's like such a like narrow-minded view on how you should view the perception of others. Maybe I care too much about the perception of others, but I want everyone to be happy and I want everyone to take what I'm saying and feel good about it. And if I'm not doing that, please let me know. Just in general. So, in the regards...
There's always a bigger fish.
I feel like we have
to quote Star Wars again and to irritate
no.
you further.
So, we mentioned this in the Harry Potter episode, and I'm sure a lot of you have already read ahead into the context clues that we're throwing down like cinder blocks. But J.K. Rowling's really been turfing it up lately. She's going full AstroTurf here.
Please define TERF for us, Brenna.
Trans exclusion and exclusionary radical feminist, which means, in the simplest of terms, I am a woman and I believe feminism is only for biological women. As opposed to
biological
trans.
women, as in
Yeah,
not specifically biological women, but specifically women who were born women.
Yes, women who are born women. And, you know, tweets are one thing. And we could talk about J.K. Rowling's Twitter all day. But she's deleting those tweets.
The receipts exist. They're out there.
The receipts exist, so you can find the receipts. But if you want the CVS receipts of receipts, we are linking a blog post that she wrote. And I think I might save this
on her website.
On her website. This is an official statement from her. And Anthony, would you like to read our least favorite paragraph, or?
I will read it, but first I'd like to say a few things.
Yes.
And J.K. Rowling, to me, as soon as I could like sort of formulate my own opinions about things, has always been one of those people that bothered me. Just in general. And it's only gotten worse. She's only said worse and worse things. She's
doubling down.
It started with tweets like, oh, like there was at least a Jewish kid at Hogwarts. Like, okay, where was that in the books? Like, where does that exist? Where is it written? You wrote these books. Show your work. Like, how did you get there? File this under representation I want in my books that I was too lazy or just didn't feel like writing into the book. I just didn't want to write it in.
Yeah.
Whatever.
The only representation she got was the twins.
Oh yeah. No. Oh yeah.
That's the and Dean. The twins and Dean.
Which Dean is an entire other subject that she uses for queerbaiting, but that's beside the point.
I don't pay attention to really anything. Like, I haven't even finished the books, so.
Right. It's so.
I know nothing about Harry Potter.
And this is like really unfortunate, especially because of people I know, and like we had a friend on the show, and we talked about Harry Potter, and like.
We like Harry Potter.
I like gave it shit for hours, and like this is me nailing myself to the cross.
I'm so sorry. There's a new name for Harry Potter. It's Giuseppe. Oh man, what is it? We've all been calling it Giuseppe Stromboli, the new hero of the Harry Potter series.
What?
Oh God. Okay.
Side note. What?
To bring your energy back to a fun level, that this is ultimately a fun discussion comedy podcast of nerd culture.
Oh God.
Someone on Twitter tweeted that I am now in charge of the J.K. Rowling's press, and made this long list of hilariously ridiculous like everyone is now bisexual, like blah 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 blah, and then at the end it was like, and Harry Potter's name is now Giuseppe Stromboli. And then J.K. Rowling direct messaged them on Twitter and was like,
"Oh no,
do not speak for me. How dare you say this? Like,
oh dear.
Like take the tweet down."
Honey, no. No.
And so they reposted
Troll in dungeon.
Literally, physically, like you wrote that in your own fucking book, and you don't notice that it's happening to you in real life. Like,
J.K. Rowling's going through some stuff, so she put me in charge of making dumb changes to the Harry Potter universe. Effective immediately. Dementors are Latina. Hermione is now Himimoni. Hagrid has fibromyalgia. Wands are called bang noodles, and Hogwarts has a billiards table. And then J.K. Rowling said, "Delete that post immediately. It is a lie. I did no such thing." And then,
but you did things that are fucking worse.
And then the person responded, "Sorry, I'm J.K." She said, "Thank you," and they said, "No, I mean I'm you now. Why are you so bad about my books, TERF?" J.K. Rowling said, "Stop this instant, or I will contact my attorney." Harry Potter is now an Italian American. He is not Giuseppe Stromboli.
Man, when you...
I'm gonna send you the tweet thread so we can all enjoy this together.
One thing that I do love that I've seen so far is that, like, it's not hate speech. It's shoot. I forget what it's called.
Please tell me this isn't actually M. Night Shyamalan.
No, it's not actually M. Night Shyamalan.
Okay, I was really like, oh man.
Yeah, something that I found out about like defamation, at least in the U.S., and this might not always work depending on like how much money the lawyers are paid, whatever. But for the most part, defamation like won't go through if a reasonable person could assume that the person is saying something outlandish.
Yeah,
Like-
yes. So the jury has to determine if it's outlandish, right? Like,
I love that. That like, so
The briefcase of meatballs.
yeah, the briefcase of meatballs. There it is.
I love the little part in the direct message that didn't get put in the direct message that starts with J.K. Rowling saying, "Listen here, you dumb bitch."
I love that Dumbledore's a firefighter now.
Yeah, it's all.
The official author of the Harry Potter franchise.
It's so Giuseppe Stromboli, and then like Daniel Radcliffe got on board with Giuseppe Stromboli. I mean, and then, like people are posting, that picture of him in the movie where he has the guns tied to it, like the guns glued to his hands, and he's in the bathrobe. So they're like, this is now Giuseppe Stromboli.
my favorite, I think the favorite one that I haven't read very many of them, but I love this. British cooking shows. Tell us about this wee tart you've made. The crust is just lovely. And then American cooking shows.
Mm-hmm.
We've replaced your knives with Phillips head screwdrivers and released raccoons in the kitchen. The clock is set for 30 seconds. Because peace in the Middle East.
So, Giuseppe Stromboli is the new hero of the Harry Potter world.
I remember lining up for the 6th book, Giuseppe Stromboli and the half-baked lasagna. Someone had gotten an early copy of the book and yelled spoilers to everyone. On page 436, someone touch his spaghetti. Oh, man.
So, if you want... So, here's what I recommend. Read
After
J.K. Rowling.
after this episode,
Yeah.
go to this Twitter thread. And
Well, no. First, read J.K. Rowling's 3,670-word public essay about how much of a garbage person she
which
is.
I will link.
Then, go read this Twitter thread and feel better about the community saying, fuck you. Because I would happily go watch Giuseppe Stromboli and the briefcase of meatballs.
Like, I have the validation now. Like, I'm gonna get up on... This is my soapbox that I'm gonna get up on. Is like, fuck this bitch J.K. Rowling. She wrote these books, but fuck this bitch J.K. Rowling. Like, these books are influential in nerd culture, but fuck this bitch J.K. Rowling. Like, I am so tired of her, and I have been so tired of her for so long, that after reading this response to, like, oh no, people are bullying me, like, I am exhausted. Like, fuck this bitch J.K. Rowling. So let me read
the worst part. But the worst
let me read the worst paragraph from like, and like, people are gonna be like, oh, you took this out of context, like, oh, you did it.
There is no
read
context
the
to
article.
take it out of. Yeah.
Read the article. The worst paragraph is about midway, a little bit before midway through, and it reads verbatim. The writings of young trans men reveal a group of notably sensitive and clever people. The more of their accounts of gender dysphoria I've read, with their insightful descriptions of anxiety, disassociation, eating disorders, self-harm, and self-hatred, the more I've wondered whether, if I had been born 30 years later, I too might have tried to transition. The allure of escaping womanhood would have been huge. I struggled with severe OCD as a teenager. If I'd found community and sympathy online that I couldn't find in my immediate environment, I believe I could have been persuaded to turn myself into the son my father had openly said he'd have preferred.
Okay.
End quote.
There's a lot to
Are you fucking kidding me?
As I do at every moment of my life, will now speak as a woman who grew up in the internet age with anxiety, depression, body dysmorphia issues, and just general fucking societal issues. Are there points in my life where I hated being a woman? Absolutely. Society as a woman is garbage. And then putting it into a petri dish of nerd culture and gatekeeping only amplifies how garbage it can be. But at no point have I, in discussing that with others, have I thought through all of my own issues and you know, mental health issues, that I wanted to be a man, because I am not trans. And I have discussed with trans individuals and non-binary individuals what that is like and what that feels like, and I've never had those feelings. So I can't attest to that feeling. But as a woman who grew up having those discussions and critically thinking about that, invalidating their desires to feel comfortable in their body in that way is, wow, okay, disgusting. And like, it just, wow, that sentence made me want to like cry, because I just, thinking about the implications of that and that paragraph is so deeply harmful, it's unfunny.
Like, and the other thing that really like gets my goat about like this whole thing is the entire article and like the cavalier attitude she has about like, oh, people are bullying me and they're wrong for doing so. No,
I've been doing my
fucking right
research
for doing so because you're fucking ignorant.
Well,
like,
but she's like, I'm doing my research. I'm doing
you
my
can't
own
cherry
research.
pick though, like, and what she's doing is not talking about any of her sources save one.
She mentioned the doctor who she always mentions when she discusses trans issues.
So one source that you have to look up on your own. No links to any sources. And second major problem is she's cherry picking people that agree with her and the extreme examples of like the backlash she's gotten, such as the man who composted her books. Like, he has every right to do whatever he wants with his property.
Yeah,
like, fucking,
you already
like,
got your money out of it.
Be sad about it. Like, that's your problem. Her just like unwavering, like, oh, whatever, like, everyone else is wrong, but I still believe in like trans rights. Like, no, you fucking don't. Like, we have miles worth of Twitter threads to prove that you fucking don't even acknowledge that trans people exist.
Yeah.
Like, literally the past few weeks, you unfollowed Stephen King and deleted every tweet you had in support of him and his writings and his space as an author, because he said that he just said something basic. Trans rights. Trans people exist. Trans people should have rights. You unfollowed him because of that. What? Why does anyone feel sorry for you? Why is anyone in your camp?
I draw the most issue too when she begins to discuss like safety, implying, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. We can lead into this, but safety when it comes to trans individuals. Like, as a woman, I feel unsafe having a trans individual in my bathroom. No, I don't care. I don't care. She cites things like, oh, but having men and women exist in a bathroom is dangerous. It's like,
no, it fucking isn't.
Well,
first-hand experience.
Italy. Yeah.
In Europe, Southern Europe, more specifically, I went to places specific. I'll be more specific. The city of Siena. They hold an annual horse race, a biannual horse, whatever. The horse race twice a year, every year in September and August, where the horses race in the middle of the city. On a side street of that city center, there is a public bathroom that you pay 50 euro cents. You go into the bathroom. People of every race, gender, everything, age, they're in the bathroom. They go to the bathroom. They go into a stall. They go up to a urinal. They do their business. They wash their hands, hopefully. They leave the bathroom. No, there are no fights. There's no yelling. There's no screaming. There's no rioting. There aren't armed guards like watching for people's safety. Like, you have to take the most extreme example in that thinking that all trans individuals are rapists and use that for your argument. Your argument is fucking bonkers. Like,
Well,
what?
Taking a step past that, if someone wants to rape someone, there's nothing that's going to stop them except for others in stepping in and stopping them. But if there is a person, doesn't matter who, if there's a person alone in a bathroom and another person walks in, that's just a constant fear. It doesn't matter. So citing this is asinine because it's implying that everyone is inherently selfish and out to hurt and get other people.
And as someone who more often than not thinks that, I can't even be on your side about this argument. This argument is so backwards.
It's disrespectful. It perpetuates a gross stereotype. It's dismissive of opinions and people. And it's just straight up.
It's just wrong.
Whack.
Like, there's no other way to slice it. Like, it's wrong.
It's wrong.
You're wrong. Like, you're bad and you should feel bad.
TERFs are not welcome.
I need a minute to settle down.
While you're settling down, Jacob and I
just going back to that dismantling biases thing again. If you're she mentions being a victim of sexual abuse, and I
out of nowhere.
I can't speak to that experience really, but it's you gotta just it's terrible, but you gotta dismantle if she viewed
speaking
every
with experience, you have to dismantle the biases.
Yeah, because otherwise that would be crippling. Men are 50% of it waffles a little bit, but men are 50% of the population on Earth.
You cannot blame an entire group of people for the actions of one.
Yeah, and then to view
you can hate that person. You can hate what happened. You can hate what that person did to you, regardless of their motivation, regardless of what they believe. Hate that person. Do not hate a whole group.
Yeah, and so it goes to the viewing all trans women not only as men, but men who would rape her or
and the idea that she's fearing that a man will just claim they're a woman invalidates the identity of trans women, because it's implying and saying, as a trans woman, you are a man simply saying, I am a woman now, which is not how that works. It's just not how that works.
And going along with the first thing Brenna was saying in the little sentence, going back to a more calm topic about once again playing Magic with this person at the LGS that I used to attend before I moved. I don't hate black people because this one person is a bad person. Because he is black has nothing to do with how he plays Magic, as far as I know. I don't know his whole life and his life story and whatever. None of that matters. The person he is when he plays Magic is a dick. So I don't want to play with him. I don't hate black people that play Magic because he exists. Like, and that sort of is like aligning and going with where J.K. Rowling is like trying to take her argument. Is like, oh, the
I'm
bad things
fearful of-
happen to
yeah.
me, so now everyone does the bad things. Like,
Well, it's like because
do you need more
because this
therapy?
bad-
Like,
yes.
what do you need? How can we help you?
it's because this bad thing happens to me, I am now wary of the entire group of people and want to invalidate them in my efforts to be protective.
And in this
that's-
case, the entire group of people is men and trans women.
Yes. But not trans men, which is again where the TERF thing comes in.
It's never mentioned. She never brings it up.
She does. The one paragraph.
The paragraphs that I read. That's
The paragraph
all
you read, and then a discussion on detransitioning, which
that's a whole other can of
A whole
worms
other
that
can of
we are
worms, yeah.
not qualified to talk about. But yuck.
moving on from this
Ew.
topic, because I feel like we're just going to continue to get mad, and this episode's already running really long. I want to talk about something really important too, and it's in the same realm as this gross stereotype that's been put upon the trans and gay communities of predatory nature, and that is the hot button topic of anime. One of them,
Oh,
Yeah.
so hot.
well, it's still hot.
Oh, well, right.
Yeah.
Anime, and specifically the depictions of traps in anime, which I will Mickey Mouse traps in a moment, but the depiction of traps in anime does nothing but perpetuates that stereotype of a predatory nature. So a trap, in the simplified version, is someone who is stereotypically and predominantly portrayed, it is a man dressing as a woman with deceiving others into believing that they are in fact a woman with the goal of getting something out of it. Whether that is
Usually something of a sexual
usually
nature.
sexual, like convincing an unknowing straight man to sleep with them while they are incredibly drunk. That is a very common fear and portrayal that is harmful. It's so fucked.
And so specifically, the anime that we brought up and discussed before the episode, before we went live to record, was Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon?
There are not traps per se. Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? That's just pure sexism. Jacob, you're slightly more familiar with anime than I am, which is not much.
Wow.
You have
Way to shit on your way to
I meant that I don't
accidentally
know
shit
much.
on Jacob's notes.
I meant that I don't know much.
I don't know
about-
anything. You're slightly more
Well, I mean, she's not
slightly
wrong.
above zero is still like 1%.
She's not wrong. I'm pretty picky about what anime I watch. And I know people who aren't. Who that's just
That's all they consume. Which,
so,
like, more power to you. Like,
Yeah.
do you?
but the issue that I found is like, just portrayals of, I don't know, people. Like, there's just too much fan service in most anime. So the animes that I've seen don't really have traps except for sort of in Naruto, but that's
Naruto
that's
has
a
one, I know.
question. I don't know how many traps are in Naruto total, but one is Haku in like one of the early arcs before Shippuden. In like the first few episodes, it's a guy who dresses mostly like a girl. I don't know if it's ever explained why. I don't know if he's supposed to be trans. It's it's always, from what I remember, he was portrayed as a male who, like Naruto wanted to kiss him at one point when he thought he was a girl, but he wasn't doing. I don't know what the motivations were for why he chose to dress and like do I don't know his makeup or what. I don't know. So that's the only trap that I can like think of in anime that I've consumed. But I guess I would say that anime has a lot of bad stereotypes, and
it's also really, really bad
sort of
for
good reason.
queerbaiting as well.
There's plenty of terrible anime.
I mean, we'll reference this as we talked about last episode, and as we talked about, what was it, episode 3? Jacob's distaste for fan service, the anime, goes along with his distaste for the Dead or Alive Extreme series. The Dead or Alive Extreme series is like the Dead or Alive fighting series fan service. Like
It's
it's the High School of the Dead, like fan service, the anime of video games. Like, why does it exist? Who knows?
Yeah,
we really know it's for money, but point.
And yeah, we know it exists for money, and anime in general too just has an issue of queer baiting, and it has an issue with it has a lot. I don't respect anime, and that's not a great position to take. So much of anime is offensive in so many ways, and it's really difficult. Wow. It's really difficult as I'm looking up more and more resources to like back up my point. It's just making it even worse.
But there's so much. But
there's so much. There's so much. Is my
right?
problem.
Well, here's the other thing, and like let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we're shitting on all these things, but like so much. Like there's so much good anime, and there's so much bad anime because there is so fucking much anime. Like.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, is there so much anime?
Yeah.
Like, I started, when I was working my last job, I started, because, like, I worked with a lot of people that were, like, really into anime, and so I started, like, a list, and once my list got to 15 pages, 12-point font on a Microsoft Word document, not sponsored, once I got to 15 pages, I started looking at it, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I would have to watch anime nonstop without, like, sleeping for like 35 million years to even approach like halfway on this list. Like, I gotta stop. If I see something and looks interesting, I'll check out a couple episodes, and like that's it. Like I appreciate anime for what it is, but there's so much of it that I can't get into because there's so much of it.
Also, something I completely forgot about is that Orion High School Host Club is entirely about a trap.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot about that entirely. Like, I really enjoyed that series.
Well, also, another really popular one I'm seeing is Baka to Test to Shoukanju. Another high school anime is the main character's a trap. Yeah, it's a class 2F student in the main character Hideyoshi Kinoshita is a trap.
Yeah. So the other issue, I mean, this is sort of.
This is why I watch 90s anime. It's
sort of
very clean.
It's
not clean, but you know what I mean. Like
most, I feel like a lot of popular animes are about teens, teen protagonists, and like women are portrayed poorly in that, like they're
infantilized.
Like,
they're infantilized. Yeah.
And like overly sexualized for like
being infantilized. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, there's
pedophilia. I mean, but like think about that just as a general like larger societal construct, and I mean this happens in.
I mean, I try not to think about pedophilia, but I see what you're saying.
Riverdale?
Well.
Oh God. Oh no.
What? Wait, what did you say?
Riverdale.
Oh yeah. I think about I am forced to think about it every day, every time an ad pops up for like a youth serum, like anti-aging.
Oh no! Stop with the youth. Stop with the youth serum. Just
women-
just become immortal.
Pop it together.
Just
No, like-
become immortal when you reach a legal age to make that decision for yourself.
The
Like,
issue, yeah, well,
fucking
it's like
duh.
women are expected, and it's so terrible in Asian cultures specifically. It's bad everywhere, but in Asia specifically, it tends to get to an extreme of women are required to look youthful and be youthful at all times. I mean,
And it goes way back to like way back to like foot binding, feet binding.
Yeah.
The process of like, which is the process
your
of
feet
like
small.
of like tying your feet and like breaking the bones in your feet so that they stay like petite and cute and they're small, and it's like that's the part of cultures, and like, yes, I'm white, I'm not of Asian descent at all, and I still feel comfortable saying this. That is the part of your culture that we can erase, because what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, that's horrific. Like, cut that shit out. It's wrong. You are hurting people.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things like that all throughout history in multiple, different chastity belts in Europe.
Yeah, there's a million examples.
There's a
That
million
was the
examples.
oldest one that I could think of off the top of my head.
The idea of encasing your daughter in a metal pair of underwear that you have the key to.
Who thought of that? Like, whose idea was this? Like,
virginity is a concept.
What's his?
it is no, like 100%.
Yeah.
I'm like 100% on board that train.
Stephen P. Chastity Belt. It was named after him.
Now we're getting back to the acronyms episode.
Born
Where
in
we didn't know half the acronyms were named after people with weird ass names.
1068 in Yorkshire. Stephen P. Chastity.
God damn it. So, anime.
You know they're older than 1068, but point.
anime, yeah, anime, man. Yeah, let's
Watch Dragon Ball Z. Like, it's real fucking simple. Like,
let's support
a
good
dude
anime.
shows up and he's like, I'm gonna fuck shit up. And Goku's like, no, stop fucking shit up.
Well,
Then Goku dies. Then he comes
even
back
past
and he's
that.
like, fucks up the dude's shit. Like, just, it's real simple. Like, just
Hunter x
keep
Hunter
it simple.
has an actual representation of a trans character,
Which
That
I
is-
appreciate.
which is being well done and well represented through
I
storytelling.
forget who. I watched it a while ago.
I just don't like Hunter x Hunter. I'm very like,
Wait,
I
who-
started that list and I had that list, but I'm very picky when it comes to anime.
Hunter x Hunter has been one of the animes that's been recommended to me heavily, so I'm probably gonna start it pretty soon. But
And this worries me about people that I know and respect, and they're like, "Oh, hey, like you should check out this anime. Like, is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon?" I'm like, "All right, cool, I'll check that out." But we started talking about it today, and I was like, "What the fuck? I am never looking at this anime. Like, I never want to
so
know
I
that this
watched
exists."
all of Is It a Good Idea to Pick Up a Girls in a Dungeon? But I also kept a tally mark of what I called the sexism tally. And that went for men and women, because there were some beefy himbos in there too.
It's just like it worries me now, like some of the people that I associate with, and I understand like social media is an echo chamber in most cases, but like if you don't believe, and much more broadly, like if you don't believe in human rights, like there's the door, like don't let it hit your ass on the way out. Like I'm not going to debate with you whether or not Black Lives Matter is a valid point. Like what? Like
And don't sexualize children.
I hesitate to mention this, but I got into a conversation with my mother on our way up to our family reunion. My wife and I were riding in the car with her, and she brought up, because I don't know why, but she brought up like the defund the police movement. She knew zero things about what it was. She had done zero research, but she vehemently disagreed with defunding the police.
Well, it
And-
sounds like an incredibly
and-
radical statement, right?
And my wife and I were like, how can you do no research and know nothing about the issue and be so convinced that one way of thinking is wrong?
Well, that goes both ways, right? I mean, from an upfront, you could say that defund the police sounds like an incredibly radical anarchist statement, right? But that's not what it is.
It does, but critically think. Do your fucking research. Like,
Yeah, no. At the end of the day, everyone needs to just do more research and search for widely available resources.
if you don't have a computer, go to the fucking library. Not now because they're all closed because of the pandemic, but like, go somewhere, speak to another human being and be like, hey, I need to look up X topic so that I can make informed decisions
just
about my
have-
opinion about the topic.
Just ask questions. No, just ask questions too. Like, have conversations with people, and this is why gatekeeping within the nerd community specifically is so harmful. I love hearing different versions of why people love certain characters that like I love, right? Because it's one thing to love a character from one direction, but you can love them from a different direction, right? Like, you can love them as a woman, you can love them as a black character, you can love them as a queer character, you can love them from multiple different perspectives. And that's why people, I mean, like, Poison Ivy is the best example, right? Like, for me, because I love her
Right.
so much. And I love her as an intelligent, powerful, strong woman. Yes, she's hypersexualized, but that's her intention, is she is beautiful to look at, much like a lot of plants and flora, beautiful to look at, deadly to get around. That's part of the allure of Poison Ivy.
Right.
And the pheromones she gives off. And then I love her from that perspective, but the gay community loves her and her relationship with Harley and how she's taken Harley Quinn and they've kind of grown together in this like wonderfully supportive relationship. And that's great. And gatekeeping would prevent those opinions and those perspectives from being heard.
On a semi-related note, do you think that, because I've seen them partially, I don't know everything about them, but I've seen some depictions of them as like anti-heroes now.
Yeah.
And do you think that's,
It's the new Harley Quinn series.
new Harley Quinn
that's
series
out, the animated
turns-
series.
do you think that's because of the healthy relationship?
Yes.
Like,
Because
you know,
they're keeping each other to a standard. It's depicted in the new cartoon too. There's a really, really, really kind of important scene for the relationship where Poison Ivy finds this bacteria that could possibly eradicate humans, but it could also like prevent something else. I don't remember exactly what. I haven't watched the new cartoon, but I saw a clip of it floating around the internet, and it was really cool. And Harley Quinn is like, don't make me do it. Like, don't make me do this. I don't want to stop you. I don't want to stop your dreams, but you could kill everyone. And Poison Ivy's like, no, it's what I have to do, you know? And then Harley Quinn just starts crying. She like takes off her mask, takes off her makeup, and just starts crying. And Poison Ivy's like, no, you can't do this. And she's like, Pammy, you can't kill everyone. And then they just like hug, and like she doesn't do it. And like there's just like, I don't know, it's a really nice dynamic they've got. They like bring out the best in each other and remind each other to be human.
Or plant,
Yeah.
as the case may be.
yeah,
Well, she's like half and half.
You know.
yeah. Because I was thinking about
Details.
how Harley Quinn only, like, her whole story arc was that she only became a villain in the beginning at all because of the Joker's like abusive relationship with her.
Yeah, emotional abuse. Yeah.
And then I don't know. I think did Poison Ivy start out as kind of like a
She was a villain.
as like a man hater kind of
Yeah.
stereotype of like, oh, like, you know, she was a female scientist who was put down by like a mostly male scientific community, and
She was like extremely
She was a villainized
fervent, like,
eco-terrorist lesbian.
Okay.
yeah.
Like think of every like 80s and like 80s stereotype of like not a bra wearing hippie lesbian that like is painful and harmful to think about. That was Poison Ivy. And through good writing, she has now evolved into a deeply complex character. And we love her for it.
They used the leaf stone.
Ah.
Sorry, everything is Pokemon now because the three boys that we live with are like everything is fucking Pokemon. Like everything is Pokemon. I came upstairs this morning. I was in the living room with them for 3 seconds. 3 seconds before one of them was like, "Hey, do you want to play Pokemon on your Switch?" I'm like, "No, I want to fucking eat breakfast." Like, oh my god, like. Child, are you serious? Like, let me, like, open my eyes and, like, have a donut. Like, are you serious right now? Everything's Pokemon.
Remember when you
And I
like
love
that?
Pokemon. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, fucking, I love Pokemon. But, like, not at...
How inspiring to have that, like, energy immediately when you wake up.
It is, but it gets to you a little bit. Like,
well, of course.
I miss waking up at 5 to watch Zoids.
Hey, the new Zoids game is still coming. It's probably gonna be garbage, but it's still coming. We'll wrap this up with.
We have 2 quick things. We can wrap it up.
Okay,
later.
yeah. Well, I got a thing to wrap the whole episode together.
Perfect.
But go ahead.
The last 2 things are, we didn't touch on this when we were talking about Wizards of the Coast, or TERFs, but the Magic the Gathering artist issues. And the only very recent separation of Therese Nielsen and Noah Bradley from the brand, despite years of, on Noah Bradley's front, manipulation and sexual assault issues and, coercion. And on Therese Nielsen's front, just being a TERF, just a real, like, J.K. Rowling level TERF.
Her name has the first 3 letters in TERF, so...
They should just, she should change her name to TERF Risa. Being garbage people. They're both just being garbage people who can happen to be good at art.
So weirdly.
I feel like we've been angry for so long that now we're at the point where it's just like, man, I don't know.
Everything has to be a joke now. Like,
yeah.
I just have to find some light in this horrid time. So Magic the Gathering is much too late distancing themselves from these people, and they're distancing. The Noah Bradley stuff.
Hold on, I gotta disagree with what you just said.
Oh.
It's not much too late. It is too late. Like in that it has been going on for far too long. That is the too late that I can get behind. The way you put it made it sound like oh, Magic the Gathering is canceled. No, it's still the fastest growing like trading card game in the world.
Love Magic. But these
Wizards needs to step up their game and be like, all right, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're a piece of shit, you're fired, like, and remove the toxicity from their company.
Which is difficult to do when the toxicity goes all the way to the top.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about, the last big, call it a win. We'll call it a win. You know what? We'll end this episode on a win.
Okay.
The Reddit bans. The subreddit bans.
Here's something I know nothing about because Reddit is not a thing, like, for me. Because I know that once I get in there, I'm stuck. I will be in the bathroom for 12 hours. Like, see, because I have so much experience with Tumblr, that's why I never went to Reddit. Like, I have exited stage right for Tumblr, and like I've never entered the Reddit like
The only thing I
black
like about Reddit is that it is more like it is very much like the more localized communities, right? Of like you can find the
the
thing you
car
want to talk
meetup
about.
hot dog bird watchers.
There is an active Webkin subreddit.
Yeah, there's subreddits dedicated to some very,
Sure.
very specific things.
Like active. Like
Oh,
people post on it daily.
fun fact on Reddit though, it's
Is it actually fun?
yes, this is a fun fact. I mean, I need help. Because you told me it. It was about like the trees and marijuana.
Marijuana enthusiast is a tree subreddit.
Yeah,
Yes.
Marijuana what?
marijuana enthusiast r/marijuana enthusiast is a
It's the
subreddit
trees.
about trees, like people who are into arboreal stuff. And then the r/trees subreddit is all about marijuana.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Abby said also apparently potatoes r/potato salad and r/John Cena are also flipped.
Yes.
r/potato salad is all about
Why?
John Cena.
Why? How is that related?
Did you hear Abby?
No.
She said John Cena's the potato salad of people.
But with the Reddit fans, Reddit for so long was a community that was like, they were like freedom of speech. Everyone can be here. And so much so that in 2015, they allowed nudes to be posted like
Unfiltered?
No.
Uncensored?
No. Posted without permission. They were posted without permission from the taker of the nude. Unapproved. There we go. They would allow unapproved nudes to circulate on Reddit because they deemed it under their code of conduct freedom of speech, which is so
Scary.
which is why I hated Reddit for a really long time. But recently they went through and for hate speech and other things, they got rid of a lot of anti-trans subreddits. They got rid of the Donald, which is huge. They got rid of they got rid of r/cumlords. That truly a subreddit.
Not anymore.
I mean, yeah, it was.
Was it about just misogyny?
I don't remember.
I don't want to know what it was about.
I know this might shock you, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time on r/cumlords.
Brenna, it's like we barely know you. What?
Yeah, and I just know when I was first actually getting into Reddit, I did a lot of looking into what subreddits were good and what subreddits were bad, so I could perfectly tailor my experience to avoid the hatred on Reddit, and I still
You sound like an ad AI.
And I still received the hatred.
I will perfectly tailor my experience on Reddit. What?
I mean, my most popular post on Reddit is a comment on a thread about how I was at a bachelor party for a guy I used to play Magic with, and they tried to get me drunk and tried to get me to strip. And he tried to pay me to strip at his bachelor party. And the comments were very mixed because I had a lot of this is why I always try to protect and harbor young women in the community because it just brings out that visceral dad reaction in me of seeing this girl get taken advantage of or trying to be taken advantage of, and they're really trying. And the other side was well, what did you expect? They invited you as the only female to a bachelor party. It's okay, I expected to play Magic.
Fuck that. No, fuck that. Because if I hadn't been exhausted as hell, you could have come to my bachelor party.
Yeah.
That we ended up not having because I was so fucking tired after dinner, and it was 10 o'clock, and we were we would have been late as shit going to golf to the driving range. Fucking what? What would you expect? You expect to fucking play Magic. Or
Yeah,
you expect to
I
fucking
expect-
golf. Like, you don't expect to be like, oh, yeah, here, we'll pay you
I'll
and
give
you
you
take off your clothes.
$300 to
What?
strip.
What? Like, oh my god.
Also,
Yeah.
I didn't hear
Oh
that.
no,
That
Abby.
said, last minute planning on their part if they wanted a stripper.
Oh no, they did order the strippers and the strippers never showed up.
Wow, harsh.
The strippers
Over
were
the phone, they were probably like, man, these guys sound like
they're gonna magic the
creeps.
string.
Yeah, because they asked me like early on in the night, they were like, there might be some strippers here. Like, are you uncomfortable with being around strippers? I was like, I see a female body every day. I do not care. But yeah, that comment has like 400. And on that like same topic in that like fits into this episode, I just want to tell this story too. My most downvoted comment is on the makeup addiction subreddit, which is all about like makeup and like the
Why are
community
you
around
on
makeup.
that subreddit?
Because I like to get makeup tips because I'm not the best at makeup.
She did the green makeup for the Shrek episode.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That just doesn't strike me as a subreddit you would spend any time on. But
It's also one of the few
okay, I
places
don't
where you
know.
can find females like congregating on subreddit, on a subreddit. But on the
yeah, I
makeup
mean, I
addiction,
guess like that makes sense.
on the makeup addiction subreddit, they posted a shade range for one of the foundation that was coming out, and the foundation it was 30 shades, and like 4 of them were meant for people who were not white, and the 4 shades that were there were all orange as hell.
Always how it is. Oh my gosh, there's never anything for cool tone black people.
No, none. It's getting better, but it's all high end too. That's what's frustrating. And I mean, like, anyway, that's a
Diversity in the makeup community is not something I'm prepared to talk about.
No, it's
Certainly
wild.
not now, and probably not ever.
This is also
But
not a
I
topic for this
understand that it's an
podcast.
issue.
It's not a topic for the podcast.
Ugh.
Unless
Jacob, what? No.
Unless
What?
cosplay.
cosplay.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, never mind.
Oh, we could do
Okay.
it.
I
Yeah.
was really worried where he was like, unless. I was like, oh god, no.
So
No,
the
that's
the
acceptable.
comment I had was I was talking about how there's only 4 shades, and like and I think I said when 25% of your line only caters to 50% of or like to 50% of your clientele, and not even 50% because of the undertones, you are doing something wrong from a business perspective. And it got so heavily downvoted. And then like and there were people because they were like, they're doing their best.
No,
It's
you're
like-
fucking not. Like, what?
It's really hard to
They're
formulate
doing what they know,
foundations.
but that doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah, it's hard to formulate foundations for people with darker skin tones because they haven't done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like
It's like medicine in females. Like the reason why doctors don't know how medication is going to react to so many females is because it's tested only on men.
Yeah.
That's why the side effects are so wild for women sometimes, and they're undocumented. Because so
You could have
many
a stomach ache or die.
yeah, basically.
Um.
But
Here,
we
take
should.
some time to help your prostate.
Well, that's why, like, I mean, like, the best example of that is so many antibiotics give you a yeast infection. So you have to take an antifungal and an antibacterial at the same time, which just wrecks your stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. These are.
So
what,
we ended this episode on a win.
what did we call? What did J.K. Rowling call this? The downfall of womanhood. What did she call it? Who cares? It's stupid. Anyway, the point of this episode is unload your biases and figure out where they're coming from.
The allure of escaping womanhood.
Yeah,
I think
that's
what you're referring to.
Yes, that is what I'm referring to. Find why you hate things and make sure that it's like a
Make sure that you're not a piece of shit.
yeah. Just make sure. Just guys,
Move the camera so we can see the whole thing.
guys.
I can see the whole thing.
Just
Oh, I can't. But
yeah.
you know how that works. Just
Be
do
excellent
it.
to each other. Just
Do it.
just
Do
be
it.
excellent
I
to each
dare
other,
you. You
and
won't.
once the pandemic calms down, party on, dudes.
But please wear your masks and wash your fucking hands.
Wear your mask, wash your hands, Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives
Also,
Matter. What?
Wash your normal hands too.
Wash your normal hands, not just your fucking hands. Wash your normal hands. This has been another episode of the Dr. Z Show.
We will see you next time.
Adios.